can talk a little bit. Okay, you know, there's the personal shadow, right?
Right.
That is the result of our personal upbringing, our traumas,
Mm-hmm.
all the things we've suppressed, right?
Okay.
A lot
Right.
of people suppress the shadow to be a better person. They don't want to do
Right.
that's
Right.
one level. Uh,
Right.
for me, there's another level, which is when you start to get down deeper. Once you've cleared off, you know, enough of your own. You say shadow, but you know, it's deeper than that. To me, it's the deep. It's the
Mm-hmm.
deep and the root. All right, it goes all the way down through the root. So we get into that place where we're talking about the collective shadow. And we started this conversation because you said a lot of people are talking about stuff they hadn't been talking about before. Like,
Oh yeah, my work, right? The men now, the men in my community that are mentioning sexual abuse, you know, as children or in military situations, prison situations, gang activity, that kind of thing. I mean, everywhere I go, I'm engaging in that conversation, just as raw as you can, with no filter, no emotional, no mental. The mental aspect seems to be like, you know, as a man, you automatically walk with this veneer of control, right? And it's mental. It's all a mental. Okay, keep it in order, keep it in check, keep it guarded. And what I'm finding in my circles of the individuals that I'm meeting at work or in my recovery circles, it's like those filters have been blown away, and I'm just engaging raw, just the raw individual, you know, their heart. Hey man, it's pretty sacred, right? So sometimes you're just holding space and not even saying or doing a lot, you know. You're just reminding the individual just how, and this is the key for me with shadow, just the relief. The relief that one gets immediately, like you get the goosebumps just when I do, and I see it when men or when anyone is going to another level and uncovering an aspect of shadow or whatever, right? Speaking truthfully, I think you're right. You're talking about just that, because that place feels watery, even though it feels like water to me. And maybe there's always some tears involved when people are speaking about trauma per se. It's like a going down, a baptismal. I mean, you know,
I think this is well, if anybody's following news or anything on Facebook or wherever this is all coming to the surface. And
right.
one of the epiphanies that I had, Reggie, was in my deepest sorrow and allowing that sorrow to take me past my own emotional traumas, past my own let's say needs unmet or all these things, and as a female, right? And then I hit that place where I hit the male. Okay, I hit the male, the masculine aspect of myself. And I think this is so vital of a conversation, Reggie, because what happened was I found myself actually going down on my knees to that aspect, to the sacred masculine in me. And as women, we so often have thought it's all about abuse against women and then children. But I realized, I get emotional sometimes. But
oh, come on, bring it. Yeah,
I
that's good.
realized how deep the trauma in the masculine is. So when you're talking now about men for the first time are able to address the pain and get it out of their heads, get it out of the suppression. Because what's the other side of that, Reggie? We talked about this before. When a male is suppressing all that pain, what's right under there is rage.
Oh, you don't talk. Yeah, we carry that around hidden as a defense, and we don't even know it. And I'll tell you what, like I was talking about some of the men that I'm talking to that are former soldiers, right? So you want to there's immense power for violence in that rage, right? And so even in the training, all of the triggers to the male trauma, right? And even in some, like, you know, some of the gangs that I've been, I hate that we're recording, but it's whatever, right? So with some of the gangs that I've been affiliated with, I never joined, but I've been affiliated. Some of the initiations, all of the initiations have been about violence. Like you break the individual first.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in the military. You wound the individual like to nothing, or to complete like vulnerability to see how you react.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a trigger where the rage comes up, where you will just absolutely fight until there's nothing till the end, then you're like welcome, like part of the pack, so, or
Mm-hmm.
part of the unit or the brotherhood or whatever that is, right? And so that is the suppressed. That is how the suppressed male shadow, I guess, is being utilized by all kinds of systems and communities and belief structures, just in every community.
Mm-hmm. And so that's suppressed rage based on trauma, because we every time we talk about the deep, we're going to be talking about trauma.
Mm.
People don't just go off and start hurting or killing each other for no reason. I mean, that's a very rare being on the planet. Maybe that's the psychopaths that are ruling the planet. But the human being, right? The feeling body, the feeling male, female, child, when it goes through immense amount of trauma, and it doesn't know what to do with it, so it suppresses it. And then we have this whole society, you know, built around, you know, the warrior, okay, the noble, the faith.
Oh, yeah.
Noble
Yeah.
warrior, he's going to go out and defend his country, he's going to defend his government, he's going to defend his nation, and he's going, you know, but but until he addresses that trauma inside, he's not free.
No.
He's not making any choice out of anything, and quite often he will hurt or have contempt for those closest to him.
Yeah,
Because anybody that gets close to that suppressed trauma or suppressed rage in a family life or in a relationship or whatever will become again, we were talking about projection, you will have that projected on you. Don't come here. Don't even touch it. So.
Right. And then, or else.
Exactly.
Don't even touch it or else,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think, you know, all of this, the Me Too thing. Well, the Me Too movement, I think, is about harassment and sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
But not so much about domestic violence per se. But with my dad was probably one of the most violent individuals I've ever been around or seen, like physically. It was just always in a rage. His rage was just legendary. Like, it really frightened grown ass men, like, to like just back away and like, I'm gonna go the other way, Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
And and I never knew what my dad's issue was, why he was so angry. Like I said, I still have yet to see an anger like I witnessed in my father growing up.
Well, you've told me.
Huh?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to.
No, you go ahead. I was stuck in a break. Mm-hmm.
You told me the story of your upbringing.
Yeah.
And it was probably the most violent upbringing I've ever heard anybody tell me, Reggie.
Really?
No, I mean, I've worked, you know, I know people that were in programs and
Right.
panic or told you this, but just pure outright brutality.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was.
And to take it up out of the deep for a minute, Reggie,
Mm-hmm.
how did you process that? How did you get out of that? How did you find yourself in all of that?
I never lost myself.
Ah.
I was never lost in it. And that's the, and I think there are many people who have gone through similar, stories. They're not personalities publicly that we know, identify with.
Mm-hmm.
You could be working with them next to them on a farm, assembly line, warehouse, teacher, whatever, just the normal everyday people. And I think, I don't know, I just think there's just something really resilient about the human spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's another layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can say humans are resilient. What is that, right? Everybody knows that, right? Maybe people don't, but I think it's been said enough. But like, we're talking about the multiple layers, the multiple depths. But I think that if now, in hindsight, right? But I think I've always knew on a level that I entered this doorway, this reality, this chaos, the ring, whatever it was, that I entered it consciously, making a conscious choice. And that remnant of those memories, they just remain. You forget it. You don't know that you know.
Yes.
The choice, right? That's the unknown knowns, right? But you live like you know. And people look at you like you know something. What do you know? What's wrong with you? Why do you glow? Like, what is that mysteriousness about you? What do you got behind your eyes, girl? And it's part of the knowing, the part of the mystery that, here, we enter these games, this reality, our families, whatever it is, for a reason. Like, I think you said it in your last video, we make the choice.
I just want to underline that one more
Please.
time. I will say that almost every time I record or speak to somebody, until you get to that place in yourself and accept that you made the choice to come in exactly where you are. You see, because otherwise, that's the other side of the big macho man and the military guy and the gang leader and, rise to the top of Fight Club or whatever it is that inside I'm a victim.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's just the other side of it, or the rejection of this life. I'm going to reject this life. I don't want to be here. I can't.
Oh, sure. Suicide. Yeah. Something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and who hasn't pondered that? I mean, come on. I mean, I'm not saying I came into this lifetime and just like, no, it's all going to be okay. I'm going to get through it the best way I can. There's always a light at the tunnel. No, I've been in places I didn't see a damn bit of light, let me tell you, until I went to the other side. You know what I mean? So what would that look like? That would be like taking too many drugs, until you there's some kind of side effect or something, or some kind of reaction that you're passing over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or just, willingly, the accidental overdoses or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I can identify with wanting to check out and being in the victim field. But each time let me just be clear. I've willingly decided I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that was documented medically as an accidental overdose, but there was nothing accidental about it. That was pure intent. Fuck this, there's got to be a better party somewhere than this, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that didn't happen, so I'm back. And so, but I think when we're talking about like shadow, we're also talking about the subconscious and that the stuff that the things we don't know, right? That are operating, like we can't see it, right? And so I think everyone always says, like, how did you survive, Reggie? How did you get through? You have this woman who I happen to refer to her as my godmother. She's She was a minister, a pastor, and she would always say, "You just cling to life so fiercely." I'm like, you know, you refuse to die or something, like you just won't give up on life. And I'm thinking, I gave up. What are you talking about? I just gave up. And I think people see something that I forgot about, but it's active, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
It's an active consciousness, spirit, whatever you want to call it, you know. And I don't know, I just kind of went on and on, but you asked me like how do I get through the darkness?
Let's take a minute because you're actually answering something, that I was going to ask you, which is like, has there been people or a special person instrumental in your life that's always sort of standing there holding that faith in you, that love for you, that
I would say I can't say that there's been one person.
maybe
The main reason, first of all, like as a kid, I went through, we were taken from my parents and split up. And I went in and out of the foster care system. There's a lot coming out about just what that really was like. I think everyone had some idea, oh, that must be terrible. And now in 2018, we're just realizing just how like it's part of the whole construct of but abusing children. And so I was in and out and around various cities, communities, group homes, and this is common. Everyone has. You go to maybe, if you start in foster care at the beginning of childhood, at school, kindergarten, which I did, I was 5, and you go all the way through the system to like 17 or 18, and you are emancipated out. It means you're free, right? Like the Emancipation Proclamation or whatever. That's what they call it when you get out of the system. You're emancipated. Maybe I'd gone through maybe 20 something to 30 different schools, maybe 10 different families or family structures, 12, so there's never one person, it just doesn't happen when you come through that system. But the universe always puts, and I think is one of the reasons why I'm talking to you now, there's always a beacon, a signature in an individual that feels the same. And for me, it's always been regal and feminine, right? Just the women, the nurturers that have shown up in my life just randomly, and would just be like, I'm gonna take you in, or I'm gonna show you, and it would be, or share some of my nurturing with you. You're gonna be one of my kids for a while, and I never really took to that, but there was always, throughout my life, there was always a very strong, loving, nurturing female that showed up to be supportive, like multiple times. And I think that would be that you said, who's holding the light or the remembrance. It was
well, I just know in my own life when I was in my darkest places, and that started pretty young with me also, totally different situation than you had to deal with. There would be somebody that would come along.
Yep.
And, I do feel strongly that there's many of us that have had to, not by choice, had to take this dark plunge. And we were being taught and shown and strengthened by that.
I was thinking about those individuals, like the people that come and hold space, like you said, to listen. I don't know why today. Something came across the screen where there was a job opening for a rescue worker, like an individual that takes the plunge into the icy river to bring you out, or the individuals that run through the fire, like, you know. And I was just wondering, like, or the social worker, you know, that continues, you know, person after person after person. The universe just provides a light, it seems, or we provide it for ourselves, you know, to reflect what we know to be, to already be within us, right? Mm-hmm. So when that's the only reason you accept it, is because otherwise you couldn't accept it. You would deny. And I've experienced, let me show you the light in you, and have been told, there ain't no light in me, look somewhere else. And I think you may know what that feels like, you know? I was just thinking about the people that incarnate here or whatever and have a job professionally where they're pulling people out of fires or disasters, and I think that's just a special. Let's talk about that a little bit, Reggie, okay? Because we'll take it a little deeper, because we can call those people heroes. Right. So that's a bad word now, right? But yeah, go ahead. It's very important, because as the masculine, and I do feel on the more collective plane right now, that women have been holding the field for, you know, generations now, right? Doing the brunt of the work, frankly, right? And some of them have got stuck with some certain amount of resentment. But there's we can talk about Joseph Campbell, or we can talk about Carl Jung, and we can talk about the collective shadow. But through all the archetypes, all right, that we can go through, get a little more into the collective aspect, there's the hero, and there's the hero's journey. And that brings one to that aspect of themselves that you could say is a spiritual warrior. Yeah. And more than I can possibly say in words right now, Mother Earth needs the masculine spiritual warriors to come up. What is that journey for you? I know you've had a lot of experiences, let's say in the astral and other unseen realms. I talked to quite a few men lately, and I know a lot of them are doing a lot of work in that way. Because we're not all called to be activists on the ground. We're not all called to make videos. We're not all called to write. By the way, what you write, Reggie, just blows me away. Thanks. It just comes out, you know. Well, that's it. See, there you are. That's it. It just comes out. It flows. Whether we know it or not, whether we realize it or not, when we speak from that heart, that really heart center of ourselves, we're moving this consciousness forward right now. I think there's a place, again, whatever that place is, where a person that identifies as a spiritual warrior or whatever, or whatever that even is, there's a place where you cannot, under any circumstance, retreat away from. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is it. I'm not going, I cannot go any, like if you encounter resistance, or like, it seems like in this world, like it's all about making a deal, to believe in something at the cost of something internal within you, right? There's a lot of that, right? Some internal belief. So, well, I'm going to turn I'm going to get my iPhone, but I'm going to forget about, the fact that there's like a billion Chinese, like 200 Chinese working at slave labor wages, to buy this, or my Jordans or whatever. That's just an example, right? Yeah, but it's a very good one, because this is what we have to confront, Reggie. All right. We do. You're talking about an internal ethic or nobility that says, I can't turn from that. Wow, you want to make me write that down? Yeah, wow. Internal ethic and nobility. And I think that's just what we all, the spiritual warriors, we don't recognize, I never recognized myself as a spiritual warrior, because I think when you make it conscious all the time, you go around looking for a fight, you know?
Well, yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And that's something that I just like to underline things sometimes when they get said.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's a danger, or that's a roadblock or a pitfall, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, of using words like spiritual warrior, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, the spiritual warfare, if there is a battle, it's in here, right? Once you conquer this aspect, you're not fighting anything anymore. You're doing whatever you can do to break about the false beliefs, the false matrix, the indoctrinations, and you don't have that need to prove yourself to anybody. So I think those words are probably, maybe there's better ones, huh? I like nobility, frankly. I've been playing with it.
Oh God, that's what right. And you know, like we're always talking about on different levels, and when you're in that place, it's like I can't retreat any further than at my core, because there is nowhere else. There is no further retreat. You're at the center of it all, right? Of creation, probably in some unified way.
Yes.
Right? Where else am I going to go? I'm going to stand in this place. Anything that comes at me, if it doesn't resonate with where I'm standing, right, where I'm grounded, then it really just dissipates. It eventually disappears because you're so anchored to it, to your core, which is the core of unified all there is, right?
So let's just sit there with that for a moment, Reggie. Just that thought you just expressed. To me, that's like the most vital thing you could say. Because when we are standing at core, wherever that is, that core, then nothing moves you.
No.
There is no retreat. There's not really even any going forward. But what you're doing, with your emanation, let's say, of that place, it's like the heartbeat.
Oh, man.
This is what I see is changing everything. This is our consciousness expanding. And as it does, it's taking apart these veils. That's why we see so much shadow coming up right now. It doesn't have anywhere to hide anymore.
Right.
It just doesn't have anywhere to hide. We've loosened, and I say we very loosely, okay? I mean, I don't know who all the we's are, or, you know.
Yeah, sure. Collective.
It's loosened up this tightly spun ball that's kept us all enchained. And as that loosens, it's just natural to me that the shadow is going to come up in oneself to be dealt with, and also in the collective outer world. And so if anybody listens to this and just gets that right there, because we've been entrained that we have to go we have to go, make our stand, we have to go fight, we have to go out there, but once you hit that core, and maybe you only hit it during a meditation, or maybe you only hit it, it's like a muscle. Get there again and again and again.
Well, and I think though, Christine, you can go out and do a standing rock, interesting, and be in that place.
Yeah, I don't put any of that down, but if you're not taking this there, right? Yeah. We all do our walk for multiple reasons, right? Like standing rock, still is living in me, right? And what's happening there is a healing. It was a coming together, and it was also a healing, because most of the warriors there and the veterans there were deeply wounded men from the reservations, to stand there and watch these Afghani vets go to tears with me.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what happened, their consciousness woke up and they realized what they had been doing in the name of a country that was diabolical.
Wow.
And they were there to heal. We were all there to heal as well as stand. There's no judgment on what anyone's called to do. I like to think of this multi-layered consciousness that, you know, some people are called to go out on the street, some people are called to write poetry, some people are called to make radio shows, but I see it's all being orchestrated. So that's where we can drop our judgment. Where do you go in yourself when you talk about core or union, when you look at the poles of the masculine and the feminine?
Oh, okay, you could just say, this, whatever video, you could pause and put a part 1 on what we just finished. Yeah. Because that's a completely other, you know, like if we're going to do the masculine, talking about the masculine and feminine.
Okay. Well, let me pause, darling.
Where have you been and what have you retained or learned or experienced? What have you awakened to? And like the thing about the core, I want to say,
yeah,
is we did retreat a little bit because we had to. You can't retreat past your core, but in the other layers, right? I defend this car, for instance. I defend my status, my station, my degree, my intelligence, right? Those things sort of like the pressure of this collapsing system pushed us away. We just couldn't. It obliterated, for lack of a better term, for me, because it just was like, education doesn't mean crap anymore. Doesn't, you know, everything's too expensive. I mean, what the hell else is there to anchor myself in, right? You know, there's nothing. And I think that is a point that we miss sometimes, whether you want to call it evil or the system or whatever this game is that we've been playing. Sometimes I have to hold a little bit of my conscience for that, knowing the choice again of we being so fractured in however time and whatever time space we've been in, we retreating to that most pure, that core space, home. We had to come home. So some of this stuff was allowed and created for that experience alone. Yeah, I believe, right, for myself.
Well, there's two aspects to what you said. There's once you're standing in your core energy, whatever that feels like in any given moment, you know, it's not something that's static and it doesn't, but whatever that feels like in your truth,
okay,
what we don't retreat from. And right. Yet what you're talking about is this system, okay, this game that's been played. It's compressed us. It's so ridiculous. It's so insane at this point that it's compressed us into this place of there is no retreat. There is nowhere to go out there. Where the fuck are we going to go out there? You know, I mean, there really isn't. And so it's actually in service to us if we want to turn it around a little.
Oh, yeah, I like that. It's exactly right. Yes, yep.
Unless we haven't gone home, like you said, and so we're out there in the periphery, cutting off a dead branch over there, or hanging our fruit on a limb that has not going to bear anything. You know what I mean? The metaphors are kind of mixed up here, but or this is a big one, and we've talked about it. Or we're going to live in fantasy.
We were talking about the whole system compressing us to our core or whatever.
Right. Well, come on. As long as you're participating in that big scenario out there, right? Out of your subconscious, because you're not conscious yet, you're creating it. You're allowing it to be created until it just got to, in a personal life or in a societal life or in family life. No matter where we look right now, Reggie, where does it make sense? Nowhere. Nowhere.
So what?
Nature. You know,
Huh.
that's our retreat. We retreat to our own internal nature, our innate self.
Yes, and that's what, right.
Right.
And that's what incarnation, I think, is my incarnation is ultimately been about.
Yes.
So we want to talk, and we want to get juicy. So if we're going to talk about male trauma, if we're going to talk about male sexual trauma, let's talk about what that feels like to be a male in this world, this system, to be abused by another male. Let's talk about like what that feels. I mean, what are the beliefs?
Talk about it, Reggie. Not enough are yet.
Well, let me just say, the reason other males don't like to talk about it, because we immediately associate it with being feminine. That's the core.
Oh, there you go. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, that's where we're going. That's the deal. I don't want to be, you mean another male had a sexual intercourse with you, and you think you are carrying that feminine energy, get away from me. All right? I can't touch that, whatever that is. I also think that in incarnating here, going down now, like, you said my experience was very brutal. It was very, when we incarnate in these very dark lifetimes or whatever, and we seem to navigate through it just beautifully. It seems to another person when we come out on the other side, like, how did this person?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that there may have been something in me accustomed to the dark to navigate through it so much. I'm just going to throw that out there. You want to talk about my shadow, being familiar enough with dark energy, essence, violence, that I navigated through it even though I didn't know. So you want to talk about past lives, whatever.
Whatever you want, Rich. And
no, I'm just throwing that out there. It's like, it could be a past life. It could be.
Let's just say it was. Okay, let's just say
it was. Right.
I mean, you don't need
for me, I know it was. Right?
Yes.
I mean, like, yeah, I was an asshole. You know what I mean? I know I bring that dimension in here. Warrior, military. How many wars has humanity been in? I mean, even if you believe the current historical timeline of however long we've been here, 6,000 years, and you believe in reincarnation, or you accept that as a truth, that this isn't your only time around the block, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do accept that. So how many times have I been on the battlefield? How many times have I held a sword or a gun or whatever? How much? Bring it back.
Can I put in a parenthesis here, because we're touching on something that is so intimately linked, which is war and the sexual abuse of men to men.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I have worked with quite a few people. I've been very blessed, very, very blessed to be given, insights into others' lives. And one of the things that I've realized, and this also comes from studying history, that men on the battlefield during war will often have bonded sexual relationships. Matter of fact, there were whole, what were they called then? Not troops, legions.
Legions. Sure.
The most fierce warriors during Roman times were men that were homosexual.
Right.
Because they were so deeply bonded through the sexual bonds. Now, I've met a few couples in this lifetime that are still living that out.
Right. Wow.
They're back together. They remember it. You see, so we're going to tie blood sacrifice, sexual abuse, trauma to war. And that's where you can go back to your gangs, your military, jails, incarceration.
Right.
I mean, when those bonds are made, and just think of it, whatever you want to call the entity, the dark entity, whether you call it the devil, Ahriman, Satan, or whatever, that those blood sacrifices, those blood rituals during violence are some of the hardest ones to break.
Mm.
Does that ring for you?
There's a block. There's a block there still. No, most of what you said, maybe about what the military and the bonding, the male to male bonding that happens. I remember talking to a friend who was in Vietnam. I think we were just having coffee. He was just an associate, and he told me this story of the first time. He was telling me how he killed a man.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Do you think he killed a man, and it was a pretty violent wartime, it was very bloody. And the first thing that he remembered is getting like the strongest erection he had ever had in his life. Have you heard of that? This phenomenon? Or it's not even a phenomenon. I think it's just but it's not, listen, it's physical. It's a, what do you call it? Like when your heart beats on its own or something, it's an involuntary function.
Right.
His erection or whatever. So, and I've witnessed what that feels like, to be engaged in violence, core, bloody violence, and to be aroused sexually at the same time. Now, why that is? What's your dog? Why that is? Oh, you're crying. Why that is?
No, I'm not. I'm just like being blown away, but go ahead. This is deep, Reggie.
Yeah. Why that is and what that means, I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that? Because I don't know why the sexual would be triggered in that.
I do.
I felt it in me.
This is something I haven't even brought to the surface for quite a while, but let me try. Something happened. Something was inserted in us humans. There's a natural hormonal structure, okay? The natural hormones, the adrenalines, the endorphins, and all of that stuff. And sometimes I would think what you're talking about, it can be like the flush of the hormones after a battle, you survived, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What is it about killing another? This is going deep in satanic ritual abuse here, baby.
I know.
About killing another, taking their blood that gives you, you took their life. You took their lifeblood into you. So I can see how that would turn into an erection or a woman having an eroticism arousal.
Right.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
But if we look at it just for what it is, right? These are some of the things that we need to get out of the shadow and bring up to the surface of our consciousness. Otherwise, we are going to be stuck again in more war, more terror, because a hormonal hit like that, it's like being on a drug. Okay?
Yeah.
It's like being on a drug. You are addicted. So I had experiences in many years back, all right? What I realized from my past lives that were coming back to me, and I realized the drug of the forbidden.
Right.
Forbidden sex. The more erotic, the more forbidden, the more, and I'm not even saying that I practiced that in this lifetime. I didn't. It was all coming back up from my that's why I've stayed away from Tantra. That's why I've stayed away from a lot of practices, because so many of them have been contaminated. But it was the forbidden aspect of it. There was something forbidden. And I know in the past I have experienced it to the extent that I walked so close to that line, all right? That total takeover, which we can see happening to people like Hillary Clinton or the Clinton, all these people that are pedophiles. And I'm going to do another interview with a friend of mine that's worked with the child sex slave business.
The woman?
Asa.
Yeah, right. I was,
Okay.
yeah,
What she talked about when she's a therapist, when she's dealing with these men, is that
I remember.
they have to have more and more and more and more because it is a drug.
It is, sure. It's even, yeah.
Right. And so if you want to go back to the whole war thing, let's turn that right back around. What we're trying to deal with here on our planet Earth is that war is a drug.
Wow.
Killing is a drug. All right. It is. Except for I feel now it's gone, like the other things we've been talking about, it's gone so over into the insane, into the killing with drones and rockets and nuclear bombs, that doesn't, that's not like the hand-to-hand combat from millennia.
No. Right, right.
You know? Right. And so even that's lost it. So then you see that I see them like this, these claw-like creatures, okay, that are, they're going to take it wherever they can. They have to have it. They have to have that power over. Anyways, I don't know where we went from there to there.
No, I mean,
have you seen that? Have you seen that, Reggie?
The individuals, I see everything you said, but I haven't seen the entities that you're talking about. No, but I have seen every aspect. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like war being a drug, and it's you know what the adrenochrome is, right?
The what? The adrenochrome? No, say it.
Adrenochrome, the drug they're talking about. They when they torture children, that they take the adrenaline out of the brain, the cerebral cortex or whatever it is, and they drink it, and it's sold and things like that, because of the violence, and it's sexual and it's sold. Yeah. I get it. And then where they're taking it.
We're hitting on some pretty deep things, and I just want to speak to anybody listening that none of this is planned. All right, we're on a roll here. And,
no, not planned at all.
So I'm going to take a minute with you, Reggie, just to sit here.
Good. I'm going to drink some water.
What we're bringing up to the surface I think because we've processed a lot of this, right, through our own memory cores, through past lives and everything, it can sound too flippant, too not deepen. But what we're doing is we're hitting at some really, really deep psychic wounds in the human. And I know you and I, Reggie, have talked before about getting to the roots, getting down in the roots. And this seems to be one of the main taproots here. And I'm not going to be able to say right now, I don't think any of us are, exactly what happened.
No, we're not. And it is a mystery. And I think, like we were talking about, each layer that we go down into the roots, into our shadow, which is what we initially started talking about, into our past, to get home, right? That's what happened, right? It doesn't have to have the neatly packaged beginning, middle, and end. It comes up through our emotions and our impressions and in our psychic connections with others that seem random, like what you and I are doing right now, like this random conversation that we brought forth, right? And
there's just to add here, because it's something that you've expressed and I see many people express it, is like when a truth hits, right? Something hits you, right? It impresses on you. You will feel it. It may be an emotional release if you haven't worked it.
Oh yeah.
But at another time, it's just a chill.
Yes, the chills.
The chills.
Oh, that's your
Exactly.
body. That's your spirit speaking to you in a different language. You know.
And
Go ahead.
that's when you listen, friends.
Mm,
That's when you listen. When you
mhm,
feel with your whole body a recognition of something, acknowledge it.
mhm.
Just acknowledge it. It's too easy to pass it off.
Yeah.
It
We're
really,
too yeah, we get really distracted. But yeah, sitting in that space, I think has become commonplace for me, Christine. If you know, to be frank, I mean,
yeah.
um, there are certain key words that I can say, like if I say home, connected to, home source or home, that home space within. So
Oh.
yeah. Mhm.
I'm finding vibration, resonance is
Yes.
so vital right now in my space.
Wow.
Uh, whether you have music on or whatever, listen to the sounds. But when I get really kind of like wonky, because I get wonky sometimes,
Yeah.
just
Right. Right. Hmm.
just going into the inner core vibration, right, and holding it,
Mm.
just holding that space, because what we're really talking about, Reggie, is very sacred. You said that word earlier.
It is.
It's very sacred. And that's why I didn't want to just a bunch of our words just to get passed off as, oh, they're talking about some pretty deep shit. But no, it's more than that. It's more than that.
Right. And so
Cool.
homing in that vibration. I love that word, homing in, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, you know, when I had my first traumatic memory come back to me, um, of an abuse by both of my parents. It was a sexual thing. And the first thing I saw was a picture of myself, my child's self. And it's common in psychotherapy, what I'm about to explain. Picture of myself, I was sitting, the picture was on a mantle. Because by this time I couldn't associate with what was happening on the bed. And in my mind's eye, I saw the picture on
Keep
the fire.
talking.
Yeah, I got it, on the fireplace. And whatever, suddenly, I mean, it's common. You're gonna know what I'm talking about. It shattered. It just shattered. There's the shattering of the self, um, of and that home space that we're talking about. I mean, I got both of my parents, the male and the feminine, and there's this ritual, whatever you want to call it, the sexual encounter. But really, I don't know if it was obviously not my consent, because I couldn't. Couldn't under. How can you consent to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in a prior, coming in, what's going to happen. Let's just say that, right? We can say that maybe I knew this was going to happen, right? And I chose to find the wisdom in it through it. And so,
How old were you, Reggie?
ooh, let me see now. You want a number, eh?
More or less.
Man, I had to have been 3,
Yeah. Okay.
3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so here you are, mother, father. Mother's over my head, father's by my feet. That encompasses everything.
Yes.
And everything that I can identify with. And the self shatters, right? So you want to talk about a replay of our ancient trauma. Like, there it is. We don't have to have the beginning of what happened to humanity, because it plays out in all of our traumas, and the shattering, the fracturing, right? We're always the fragmentation. We talk about that, our fragmentation of ourselves, of what we identify as ourselves, our sacred spaces. Well, in the belief that it could be shattered is the biggest illusion that has to be corrected and honed in layer by layer, layer by layer.
Peaceful.
And it plays out all across humanity on the planet this time, you know, off-world, in-world, underworld, you know, and integrating. So you gotta bring those into union, because at that point in time, the masculine and the feminine, and this is why I'm sure in most rituals abuse they have male and female present, because you ain't got nothing to go turn to after that. But you have got, if you survive, and we do for a reason. Those that us that have, I'm not saying I was an SRA or anything like that, but you know, this is not a. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just sitting here listening to you, Reggie, and I think this is really a vital sharing. And what's coming to me, besides feeling and recognizing in myself similar experiences, is that the playbook in the world, right, is we have the god Saturnian
Yes.
god that eats his children, right?
Right.
And then we also have the mother aspect that eats her children, you see? And this has been pitted against us as ever really returning to our wholeness and our union for eons of time, epochs of time. Whenever this started, you're right, maybe we don't even need to remember it. We just need to heal right now, right here, right now.
Well, that's all we can do, unfortunately. You know?
Well, it is all we can do. But as we do that, I also see that our more cosmic memory.
Yes, comes in. Absolutely. We make space for that. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, you're welcome. But I mean, I think it should almost go without saying that when we get together, we tell these stories. We share these experiences.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're coming home to ourselves, and getting down now. You know, that phrase in the disco movement when they would say "get down," you know, that just meant to like dance.
Yeah, I know.
We're getting down, right? In this conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I like what your friend, he's all of our friend, like Randy Morgans, puts out about everything may be inverted, like we're living in inversion.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like going down to our shadow aspects is like going up, and how we and our associations with what up actually means to be more enlightened, right?
Well,
but we're going. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it into some, terminology here, the understanding. And see, the thing that I found, Reggie, that in all my studies and research, mythologies, ancient societies, esoterica, Hermeticism, there's one model.
Okay.
There's one model on this earth plane in this earth realm. And that is going down through the roots into the dark. And the rainbow bridge that connects us back to the top of the tree, right? Wow. I mean, that's like Norse mythology, but you can find it in any mythology on the planet. So what I have experienced enough now to have a faith that this is a truth is
Wow.
that earth plane down here in the deep, when we go down in the deep, that's where we find our light.
Mm-hmm.
Because we
Wow,
can
yes.
see our light.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We cannot see our light until we're in the dark.
Wow.
If we're just up here in the, like I said, I see those that just have, and I'm not criticizing, believe me, I'm not judging, because everything has a purpose. But if you've spent your life being good, if you spent your life just trying to prove to the world you're good being, it's somehow very fragile in a way.
True.
It doesn't take too long for that, if the right person comes along, to knock that and have that shed. That's happened to me.
Yeah.
So in this journey that you and I are taking here right now, we're getting down to something very, very deep within the human splitting off, the first splitting off. Because we weren't always male-female.
No, we weren't.
There was a reason for it. That's up to everyone to suss it out for themselves.
Right.
But we had to play out these roles of duality to come back home, to have wisdom. And I don't know where else we can take it right now, Reggie.
Oh, well, we could, because
Okay.
yeah. That's it for a minute. Creating. We do a lot of remaking of things here, making them in our own image and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wonder how many of us have experience with true creation as like what we are like birthed from or created out of, source creation, like feels and looks like, what that experience is. True manifestation of one mind, unified, whatever you want to, heart, home space, right?
That's a really very astute, good, something to ponder. And
So that's why we're doing this.
So this is, yeah. So why, and that's another term that gets bantered around. I like the word banter because people talk a lot. We are creator beings.
Yes.
I touched on it a little bit when I talked with Claudia. We can accept that. The issue really becomes we're in a script.
Right.
We're playing a role in a script, right? And that's what we see reflected in the outer world.
Yes.
And so if you really spend some time with the deeper philosophers and the deep thinkers and the mystics and the Gnostics and all of that, you get to a point where it's like Plato's cave, where instead of being caught in the reflection, you come to be the projection. And just even thinking that for me brings up a whole set of measure.
A whole set of what?
Of measure. Like I have to measure what that is. What I mean is I have to measure myself. So to truly return to our original state of being, okay, as a divinity, as a divine being, wherever that was for any individual, right? All this talk about I'm a god, I'm a goddess, and all of that. I'm looking sideways. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I know. All right. Yeah.
Okay. The point of creation, which we call home or source, one has to be totally surrendered to that. Completely surrendered to it. To that divine will, if you want to call it that. And we've been fighting for a long time here, establishing our sovereignty. So there's another step. Yes, our sovereignty is important. It is. But what's the next step? How do we know? You know, if we were to imagine ourselves as creators, how are we going to recreate this mess? You know, where is it in this aspect that can really say it's ready to take on that responsibility?
Oh no, that's not. We're not. We're not.
Mm-hmm.
And nor should we be. I mean, you can't. No, I don't think you and us, our hearts, even want that for ourselves or for creation or the universe or anything, right?
Right.
And so, yeah.
And yet,
But,
the whole universe creates through us. I mean, we're inside a sphere and a sphere
yeah,
and a sphere
yeah.
and a sphere and a sphere, right? You know, so
Mhm.
we're intimately connected to this creation. And how close, I would say, can we get to our own core, really, to where that becomes, I don't like English words. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
Because
No,
anything
you
I say
can't.
right now won't cut it.
Right. So you just keep talking and telling, you know, the story as you're experiencing it here and now.
Mm-hmm.
And which is what we're doing right now, because Christine, we are creators. We are creating, whether we say I'm a creator being or not.
Right. We are naturally creative. We are
Right.
naturally imaginative. The imagination is a very big key to this, right? But
Right.
there is a fine line between everything. It's like walking a tightrope. I say this all the time. It's a very narrow path, because when you allow yourself to go into the field,
Mm-hmm.
all right, and without desire, without need, without you know, or just even enough to step outside of that subconscious realm long enough, something happens, Reggie. You know, and the imagination turns on. And my experience has been that I'm now in a field of creation. Okay, I'm in a field of creation, right? That something is being prepared. It's not being prepared even out of me. It's a weird thing, because I'm being prepared, you're being prepared, right?
Well,
Every movement, it's fluid. It's fluid. That's what I want to say. It's fluid. It's not fractured. It's not it's not contingent on anything. It doesn't require anything, right? It's just the fluid field,
Yeah.
right? And you know, somehow you're part of that.
Yeah.
And that's just a state of being. And I'm trying to put words to a state of being, you know, and I'm finding that line I said, that tightrope line, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
get more in touch with my energy body, not in all the systems that they put out there and all those charts and all those colors and all of that. No, just my pure energy, that I'm following it like a wave. When I'm in flow, I'm not in flow all the time, but when I'm in flow. Okay, so I'm literally coming into reality and out of reality, into reality and out of reality, and into reality, into this realm, just like a sine wave.
Right.
Right, and there's something about that.
Like our conversation.
Like our
You know?
coding. We're conversing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll put it biblical.
Mm-hmm.
When you find that everlasting peace in yourself, and you touch on grace, you'll know.
Mm.
And I know anybody hearing this, and I know you, Reggie, have felt those states of being.
Ah, yeah. Come home to it at least once a day.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, there's more there too.
Oh, you better believe it.
Oh my God.
I just want to say, because I mean, you edit it. You probably should stop it at that point, whatever you said. But this thing about us being creators and getting to a space where we're like, oh, I feel so good right now, girl. I feel pretty, man. So like, and that's what all of this shadow work is ultimately about, is going there because we're taking something back, believe it or not. They have taken our creative, someone has, this system, or we've given it away or whatever, to project this reality. When you were talking about the trauma and the wars, what they're doing with dead males, and they're using all of that to just throw it out into, well, so when you're hurt so bad in your anatomy, that's all you can see sometimes. Everything else gets blocked out, and that becomes like your ultimate reality, your only existence, right? And that's what they're doing with the wars, and the poverty and the scarcity.
Starvation.
Right, starvation. And I think because it's coming out of us, we believe and we see, and we don't stand in this, we're starting to stand in our home space, our source area or connection, unity or whatever, so that we're creating a reality because we're going to create no matter what.
Exactly.
That aligns with being at home, being unified, being connected with everyone. And it's very difficult to put that in words, Christine. What I'm trying to say is, we can stop creating the world as we see it and start manifesting the inner world. But because there's so much shadow and unhealed trauma, until you go into it, that's all you will create, and that's all we'll have until enough people start stepping in to that shadow and into the repeated traumas. And it's really enough to consciously step into it. You say, you ask the question, do we just want to remake this? Well, not if you go into it. Then you have some power over choice and decision. When you don't know what you're creating, because you haven't you're doomed to recreate.
Exactly.
And recreate, you know.
Exactly, Reggie. I mean, that's the truth. However you want to find that truth, it's out there. You know, you find it inside yourself, but it's also out there. All the science right now, all the plasma physics, all the past civilizations that are being revealed, our origin on this planet, all of it's being revealed. So, and that's a natural thing that we also have as human beings, besides resilient, is our natural curiosity, which has been drummed out of us through our indoctrination in our school process. But, you know, it's just like an invitation, really, Reggie, to anybody that wants to, you know, dive in. And if you dive in deep, you are not going to be let down. You're just not. Anybody that has that courage and that will and that honor. I'm attesting to that because I felt like I was dying many times in this life.
Yeah.
And let's end it here, Reggie. We can keep talking, but I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
Because this is a pretty vital piece, and I just am getting closer to it. Trees.
Ah, man.
Hey. Okay. Trees. It's probably one of the most beautiful things, and I've watched Reggie do it. Go out and hug and sit with trees, climb in trees, be with trees, listen to trees. Their function or their beingness on this planet is so vital for our own gnosis. And there's something so deep there, Reggie, and I can't put words to.
No, not me either. No.
Sacred, the sacred groves.
Mm-hmm. And I think there will come a time when, I don't know if words will be what we put to it, but there will be a feeling that we can express. And some feelings can't even be expressed,
Right now, it's just silence of the trees.
Yeah. They're all around me right now too, in this park.
I know.